Salutations, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 20 of the one they call Broccoli by Texiliaz. As always, the link to the fic will be in the description below, and with that out of the way, let's get on into it. Chapter 20 Sports Festival and Gaining New Friends. Summary. It is time for the sports festival. Even without a useful quirk, Izuku is prepared to fight and to do his best to win. Only, things never really go according to plan, do they? Author's notes. Hello, everyone! We've managed to reach 100,000 words with this chapter. Yay! Thank you for sticking around so far. Okay, oh boy, here we go. The Sports Festival! Just a heads up, we are going to cover the whole Sports Festival in one chapter. So, if a scene is skipped, then just assume it played out like it did in canon. With that said, let's go! Trigger warning. Scary vestiges. Mention of endeavor. Ugh. Izuku's point of view. So apparently, Present Mike had dragged Aizawa into being his co-host for the festival. And the poor man sounded miserable. Izuku and the Vestiges were currently having a hard time concentrating on anything around them, doing their best to hold back their laughter over Aizawa's misery. Well, I would have preferred he stayed home. This is pretty damn funny, Nana laughed next to him. Izuku chuckled quietly. Agreed. Beside him, Jir gave him a strange look, and he quickly schooled his expression and looked down at the ground, trying his best to listen to Midnight explaining the first challenge. Before the festival, Izuku had decided to try his luck and had sent in a request to use his support gears during the competition. But in the end, the only part of Izuku's support gear that got approved was his capture weapon gloves, with the knives sadly, and predictably, being denied. Same with his belt and his little knickknacks that were in it. I am sure you will find plenty of ways to get through it, even without your gear. We wouldn't want it to be too easy, now would we? Nezu told him, chuckling when Izuku had pouted at him. But at least with his gloves, Izuku could easily swing his way between the cliffs. He nearly gave the Vestiges a heart attack when he, without a moment's hesitation, and an excited whoop, jumped from the first ledge. When he landed on the other side and was getting ready for the next jump, he heard someone laugh from right behind him, and he looked back just in time to come face to face with the crazed-looking pink-haired girl staring at him, or more precisely, his gloves. You have your own babies? The girl squealed loudly, making his ears ring. Well, no matter. They won't be mine, she then said gleefully, her eyes twinkling in excitement as she grinned from ear to ear. Before Izuku could even begin to comprehend what she had just said, the girl was off, jumping off to the next ledge while shouting something about her babies. What the hell? Izuku found himself saying, only for most of the Vestiges to groan. Support gear! They are interesting people. Though that girl surely is on a whole other level, Diagora explained with a chuckle. In the end, what managed to save him and gain him first place in the first part wasn't his advanced support gear. No, instead, what got him into first place was a scrap of metal that he had picked up in the beginning. Go figure. For the second competition, Izuku managed to team up with Uradaka, Tokoyami, and that support gear student, Hatsume. But even though they fought so hard, in the end, it just wasn't enough. Izuku's heart felt heavy with disappointment, feeling like such a failure as Midnight, one by one, announced the teams moving on to the next part. Uraraka poked him on his shoulder, bringing him out of his stupor, and he saw both her and Hatsume both grinning and pointing at Tokoyami, who had a band in his hand. Not even a second later, Midnight announced them as the last team making it to the next and final round. Izuku's eyes widened with realization, his heart beating fast in his chest. We made it! We all made it to the one-on-one battles? Relief and joy spread throughout Izuku, and he felt himself starting to tear up, feeling dizzy as the world seemed to tilt around him, as well as growing smaller. Wait, what? Midoriya? Iridaka cried out in alarm as Izuku felt himself starting to quite literally drift away, floating up into the air. What the heck? He cried out, flailing his arms in a panic, which only caused him to spin until he was hanging upside down. Inside his mind, he heard Nana gasp. Oh no, it activated already? Tokoyami acted quickly and called out for Dark Shadow, who Izuku gratefully grabbed hold of. What? Izuku asked quietly while Dark Shadow helped him back down to the ground. He tried to put his feet down, only to realize he couldn't. No matter how hard he tried to get down, he was just floating right back up in the air. Okay, shoot. Just calm down, kiddo. It's my quirk. It reacts to strong emotions, so just try to stay calm, alright? Oh, alright, yeah, because that's an easy thing to do, Izuku muttered, feeling like crying as he held on to Dark Shadow. Seriously, why did this have to happen now? Like, sure, float is a super cool quirk, and he was excited to learn how to use it, but again, did it have to activate now? And why here? Couldn't it at least have waited until he was inside? The cameras had, thankfully, turned off for the break, but there were still hundreds of people around who probably saw him randomly float up into the air. And sure, most would likely just assume it was Uraraka's quirk acting up, but that just made Izuku feel bad for Uraraka because people might think she had bad control of her quirk, which was unfair. Midoriya? What was that? Are you okay? It it's not my quirk, I swear. I've tried deactivating it, but it's not doing anything. Uraraka stressed, putting her hands together to show it didn't do anything. Yeah, I'm fine. It's just, my quirk is pretty weird. It kind of mutates some new abilities sometimes, and I guess this is a new one, Izuku explained sheepishly, still holding on to Dark Shadow for dear life. It mutates? Tokoyami asked, his eyes widening. That's really strange, even among the most extreme quirks, Hatsume bluntly pointed out, making Izuku grimace. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out, Izuku admitted quietly, before shaking his head and turning his gaze towards the commenter's booth that he knew Present Mike and Aizawa were seated in. He couldn't help but wonder why the hell he was still floating, since he was feeling pretty damn awful right now, and Nana once told him that positive emotions was what made her float, and negative ones cancelled it. But since when have any of his quirks worked correctly? With a sigh, Izuku turned back to the others, who were watching him with varying levels of curiosity and concern. Um, I hate to ask you this, but could one of you help me get to Aizawa sensei? I think I need him to erase this because I'm not sure how to get it to stop, he said, feeling embarrassed as he was still trying to find his balance in the air. If you want, then me and Dark Shadow can accompany you, Tokoyomi offered, though Uraraka looked to have been ready to offer help too. Thanks. I really don't want to fly off into the sun, Izuku chuckled, awkwardly setting himself between Dark Shadow and Tokoyomi, one hand on each of their shoulders. Uraraka and Hatsume waved them off, and the three of them slowly made their way towards the booth they knew Aizawa-sensei was seated in. They had been on the opposite side of the stadium, so they had a long walk ahead of them. On their way there, Izuku couldn't help glancing at Dark Shadow, wondering how alike they were, wondering how alike they and the vestiges were, if they could hear Tokoyami's thoughts and vice versa. Next to him, Tokoyami spoke up. You're not regular, mortal. That shook Izuku out of his thoughts, and he whipped his head around to look at his classmate, who was watching him with an almost thoughtful expression. What? Izuku asked, wondering if he had heard that correctly. We are one and the same, beings who do not quite fit in among humans, Tokiyami continued, making Izuku even more confused. Though you are also different somehow. Even Dark Shadow is intimidated by your fierce aura. Even though his voice sounded calm, Izuku now noticed how his feathers were a bit ruffled, like they were almost standing on edge. Realization hit him and his eyes widened. You're scared of me? Izuku whispered, feeling his heart squeeze painfully in his chest at the thought. On his other side, Dark Shadow huffed. Like I would ever be scared of a runt like you, they said, though Izuku also heard a bit of tension in their voice. Why? Izuku asked, turning back to Tokoyami. Is it. Did I do something to upset you? He asked quietly, trying to remember anything he had done or said to his classmates, but coming up blank. Before today, they had rarely talked, after all. Tokoyami's eyes widened, and he shook his head. No, not at all. He then cleared his throat, as if to compose himself. I apologize. I did not mean to upset you. I simply meant to say that I feel a connection to you, he continued quietly, as he avoided looking at Izuku. While Izuku continued to watch him, feeling oh so confused, the vestiges started chuckling. He's just an awkward teenager. Don't worry too much about it, kiddo. I bet he just thinks you're cool and wants to impress you. Yeah, don't worry about it. En had a phase like this too as a teenager. He's probably not sure how to make friends and is nervous. Hikage offered kindly, earning an offended shove and a hey from En. Izuku found himself nodding mindlessly as he listened, still keeping his eyes on Tokoyami. You, want to be friends? He asked carefully, causing the other to bristle and his feathers puffing up even further. Tokoyami opened his beak to say something, but was cut off when Dark Shadow started laughing. Aw, you hear that, Toko-chan? Someone wants to be your friend. Hey, they teased, poking Tokoyami and moving around so much that Izuku nearly lost his balance in the air. His classmate didn't say anything and crossed his arms, glaring at his quirk, and Izuku felt bad for saying anything. Just when he was about to apologize, Tokoyami sighed. I guess, if you do not mind, I would like to have you as an ally, he said carefully, causing Izuku to grin, his shoulders slumping in relief. Really? That's great. I'm glad we're friends, Izuku said cheerfully, relief flooding him. Then he ducked his head, glancing at the other hesitantly. But, um, if I ever make you uncomfortable, then just let me know, he added quietly, hating the idea of his friends being scared of him. I assure you, it is fine. Even though I cannot quite put my finger on why, there is simply something about you that has my instincts on edge. Though I assure you, it is not anything bad. Oh, okay. That's good to hear, Izuku answered, unsure just what he was supposed to say to that. Holy shit! Is it 'cause you're a cat and he's a bird? Is this what they call animal instincts? That's insane! Izuku sighed at the vestiges theorizing inside his head. He once again wondered if Tokoyami had to suffer through the same things that he did. He considered his new friend, how Dark Shadow was still teasing him, and he found himself smiling at the familiar image. Maybe one day he could tell Tokoyami about the vestiges. They reached the commenter's booth and knocked on the door. Once they got an okay, they let themselves in, finding Present Mike and Aizawa eating their lunch. Aizawa's lunch consisted of a jelly pack with a long straw stabbed into it, so he could eat by himself, even in his mummified form. Hello, listeners! Hello, little listeners! Present Mike greeted them kindly. What are you two doing up here? Shouldn't you get some lunch? Izuku noticed Aizawa tilt his head downwards, and even though Izuku couldn't see his expression behind all the bandages, he just knew the man was glaring at him. Or, more specifically, he was probably glaring at Izuku's feet that were currently floating above the ground. There was the sound of a deep and exhausted sigh as Aizawa leaned back in his chair. What happened this time, problem child? The man grumbled. Izuku shrunk back a little and gave his teacher a nervous smile. It's, um, another quirk mutation, Izuku explained, giving the man a pointed look at the word they decided to use to describe the past user's quirks. And I, um, can't seem to turn it off. So could you help me, please? He asked, feeling embarrassed for even having to ask something like this. The next thing Izuku knew, gravity came back and he flopped down on the floor with a surprised if, thankfully landing on his feet. Thanks, Aisawa sensei, Izuku stammered, shifting his weight and just making sure he wouldn't float up into the ceiling even as Aisawa's quirk deactivated. No problem, kid. Is it safe for you to continue in the tournament? Aizawa asked. Yeah, I think I have it under control now, but, just in case, could you keep an extra eye on me? If I start to float, then please turn it off. I'll forfeit if that happens, obviously. He didn't want to even think about what he would do if he didn't have Aizawa as a safe line. Launching himself up into the sun on national TV wasn't exactly something he wanted to imagine, much less experience. Sounds fair, Aizawa grunted with a nod. I'll keep an eye on you. Try not to make me have to use my quirk. Next to Aizawa, Present Mike cleared his throat, bringing their attention to him. I'm sorry, but am I missing something? Your quirk is super strength, right? Why would you suddenly be able to float? He asked, glancing between them. Beside Izuku, Tokiyami was doing the same, watching them with a thoughtful expression, Dark Shadow having returned to his classmate. Oh, it's kind of complicated. I have a sort of power stock quirk that shows itself in different ways, like how it stacks up energy to make me stronger, or in this case, make me float. I'm still not sure how it works exactly, Izuku explained with a shrug, giving the same explanation that he had first given to Kachan. Present Mike nodded, looking thoughtful and confused, but not doubtful, which was good. That was the exact reaction they were hoping for. Izuku checked his phone, realizing how long they had been gone already. Anyway, we should probably head back and try to get something to eat before lunch is over. Thank you again, Sensei. After leaving the commenter's booth, with one last promise to be careful, Izuku and Tokiyami headed over to the cafeteria. There, he proceeded to repeat the same story about his quirk to those who had seen what had happened. Most people accepted the story with a shrug or a laugh. Some even joked about how unlucky it was that it activated outside and during the sports festival of all places. Relieved that they didn't seem to suspect anything weird, Izuku continued to eat, blissfully unaware of a couple of heterochromatic eyes glancing at him from across the cafeteria. Izuku, what the hell did you do to this kid? And wasn't that the question of the year? To be honest, Izuku had no idea what Todoroki had against him. First, this morning when the boy had, out of nowhere, declared them as rivals, in front of the whole class, no less. And then, the moment he had finished eating, Izuku had been rudely dragged away from the cafeteria and to a secluded hallway where he was currently being stared down by the other boy. Izuku's mind spiraled as he tried to think of what he had ever said or done that could have pissed his classmate off so much. And why in the world wasn't Todoroki saying anything? The only reason Izuku knew this wasn't going to be a beat up was because Danger Sense wasn't reacting. Still, the way Todoroki was just standing there, glaring at him, made his skin crawl unpleasantly. He'd almost rather he hit him instead of whatever this was. Deciding to try and break the silence, Izuku cleared his throat. The boy didn't even twitch and just continued to watch him in silence. Um, did you want something? Izuku asked hesitantly. I've been noticing some things about you, Todoroki said bluntly, making Izuku jump in surprise. Oh, like, like what? Izuku stammered. Despite himself, he found himself blushing at the way those cold eyes seemed to grow even more intense. Holy shit, is this a love confession? Diagoro exclaimed loudly, making Nana squeal in excitement. Izuku barely suppressed a wince at the loud volume. Eee! Oh, does he have a crush on our little Izu? That's so cute! That brat better not think he's good enough for our Izuku! Aw, second, so you do care about him. As he continued to listen to the vestiges, he felt his blush deepen, and he wished, not for the first time, that this damn quirk could be muted. Your quirk. It's like All Might's, Todoroki said, dragging Izuku out of his head. Oh, so maybe not a love confession. Nana sighed, sounding disappointed. Good, the second muttered. The second and third muttered in perfect unison. Todoroki continued, and Izuku did his best to focus on his classmate, wondering where he was going with this. Not to mention, after the USJ, when Cementus told us to leave, I heard you call All Might your father, he said coldly, his glare turning even darker. And then, when we got back to school, I heard Asui say that you had called Aizawa-sensei the same thing. Izuku swallowed. What? What are you? Midoriya, Todoroki said seriously, making Izuku tense. Are you All Might's and Aizawa-sensei's secret love child or something? Huh? Inside Izuku's mind, the vestiges burst out laughing. Wait. How did you... No, wait, I mean... He stammered, trying to make sense of how he came to that conclusion. Because, yeah, after his slip-up, Izuku could kind of see how his classmates thought Aizawa was his dad, but both of them? So you're not denying it? I'm denying it! Izuku screeched, his face burning a bright red. They are not my dad! I just admire them a lot. That's all. I already have two other biological parents. So you're adopted? Todoroki said, nodding his head in an almost understanding way. Oh my god, they are not my fathers! Seriously, you've got it all wrong! Izuku cried out. His face was red as a tomato by this point. Speaking of fathers, Todoroki continued absent-mindedly, completely ignoring Izuku's meltdown as he proceeded to tell him all about his family and his tragic past. Inside their shared mind, Izuku and the vestiges were already starting to plan how to bring an end to the current number 2 hero. Katsuki's point of view. Katsuki wasn't one to worry, especially about others. But then he saw that half-and-half bastard drag away Izuku from the cafeteria. And he wasn't worried, damn it. Just angrily concerned. After all, he had seen that same shit happen way too many times before to not recognize what was about to happen. But he didn't think that kind of bullying would happen here at UA, especially after the talk they'd had with the principal during their first week. Of fucking course the son of the number 2 hero would get away with shit like that, he thought, gritting his teeth. Well, not on Katsuki's watch. No way was he gonna let that punk get away with beating up someone scot-free. That's why, with gritted teeth, Katsuki stood up and moved to follow the two, ignoring Shitty Hair's confused call behind him. He had been ready for a fight, or for at least degrading words and insults. But he certainly wasn't expecting any of this. What the fuck kind of theory is that? He thought, suppressing the urge to groan as he dragged a hand down his face. I swear I am surrounded by goddamn idiots! All of them! Katsuki really should have just left then and there, seeing how this didn't seem to turn into a fight. But despite knowing that, he found himself staying. And oh man, was he glad he did. It took everything in Katsuki to not burst out laughing at the way the nerd smoothly defended himself. How he had gotten away with lying to a pro hero for years, Katsuki really couldn't understand. Too busy trying not to laugh, he almost missed the way the half-and-half extra changed the subject to instead talk about his past. But Katsuki heard enough to feel the little respect he had for the flame hero to totally vanish. Wow, okay. Fuck endeavor. But also, who the fuck trauma dumps in the middle of a hallway during a sports festival? Shinso Hitoshi's point of view. Call him spiteful, but Hitoshi really couldn't care less about these entitled hero brats. They had gone their whole lives praised for their heroic quirks. None of them had probably ever had to hear how they had a villainous quirk or been told to jump off a bridge or, God forbid, had to wear a muzzle in school because others feared he would use his quirk on them. The fact that he had never used his quirk in any such way didn't matter. They never cared. To them, just the fact that Hitoshi could do it meant he was already a villain in their eyes. No, he was sure none of these brats could ever understand just how blessed they were. That's why, today, he didn't feel bad using his quirk on them. He didn't, no matter how it made his stomach turn. He was gonna win, no matter what. But damn, even among heroic students, this green haired guy was dumb. Not even a minute into the match, Hitoshi had already managed to use his quirk on him, even after that monkey had probably warned the idiot about how it was activated. Hitoshi smiled when he felt his quirk take control of the other teen. Checkmate! Turn around and, he started to say, only to get caught off guard by the sound of rough static and rumbling thunder echoing in his head. There was also something else. Something that should almost sounded like a voice of several voices, but they sounded heavily distorted and wrong. Let us go! Hitoshi saw movements on the other side of the arena, and his eyes widened as he saw what looked like multiple shadows surrounding his opponent, their shadowy forms seeping around him almost protectively, and their glowing eyes staring straight at Hitoshi, making a shiver go down his spine. He didn't dare move, only staring at whatever the hell that was, and feeling his blood run cold as the static grew even louder in his head. Let us go right now! They roared, causing Hitoshi to flinch and lose control of his quirk. The other kid came back to himself with a gasp, and when Hitoshi blinked, the shadows were gone. What the actual fuck was that? Hitoshi looked around the arena, but the things were nowhere to be found, and none of the commenters or judges were saying anything. Did no one else see them? Did I imagine that? Is it his quirk? Shit, what even is his quirk? Does he... No, there's no way he has a mental quirk, right? After all, he got into heroics through the exam. His thoughts were abruptly cut off by the other teen throwing themselves at him, and he barely had time to dodge. At that moment, Hitoshi found himself really regretting not learning more about his opponents before the match. Seriously, who the hell is this guy? Izuku's point of view. Despite Ojiro's warning, Izuku, like an idiot, almost immediately got brainwashed by Shinso. But somehow, he managed to break free. He wasn't sure how exactly he had managed to do that, but he had a sneaking suspicion that the vestigages had something to do with it. Not one to pass up such a golden opportunity, Izuku charged at his opponent. The match ended pretty quickly after that, with Izuku managing to push Shinso out of bounds. From the moment he broke out of his quirk, Shinso had seemed really confused, not even trying to use his quirk again, and watching Izuku with an almost fearful expression. And even now, after the match ended, Shinso looked at him like he expected Izuku to attack him or something. He looked scared of him. Biting down his unease, Izuku forced a smile on his face and he leaned down to help the other boy stand up. Shinso just kept staring at him, though, not making a move to stand up or accept his hand. Are you okay, Shinso? What the hell is up with your brain? Shinso snapped, slapping away Izuku's hand and pushing himself up on shaky legs before taking a few steps back, away from Izuku. Oh, Before Izuku could answer, Midnight called out to them. The match is now over. Please chit-chat somewhere else. Izuku flinched, and before he could think, he pulled Shinso by the arm and dragged them both out of the arena. It wasn't until they were out of sight from the others that Shinso came to a stop and twisted his arm out of his grip. Izuku stopped too and turned around, only to find Shinso glaring at him. Seriously, what was that? The boy all but demanded, his glare and tone somehow reminding Izuku of a younger, and less intimidating, Aizawa. The vestiges seemed to agree, Nana and Diagoro appearing next to them and cooing over him. Oh my gosh, it's like a mini Shota. I know, right? Look at how cute he is. Izuku shuffled in place awkwardly and gave Shinso a nervous smile, doing his best not to look at the ghosts currently trying to ruffle the other boy's unruly locks and poking at his cheeks. Said boy obviously didn't seem to notice them. Their hands uselessly went through him while he kept glaring at Izuku. Realizing he still hadn't answered, Izuku cleared his throat. Oh, I might have multiple personalities, he said hesitantly, rubbing the back of his neck. It felt weird saying the words out loud. He hadn't even told his dads yet, wanting to wait until he actually got diagnosed before telling them. No, I mean, yeah, you might have that too, but that is not what I was talking about here, Shinso said, frowning, while absent mindedly swatting a hand next to his face, as if chasing away a bug. Or, in this case, Diagoro's translucent hand. Then, what are you talking about? Izuku asked, watching intently as Diagoro curiously tried to poke Shinso again, only for the boy to look annoyed and scratch his cheek where Diagoro touched him. Diagoro's eyes widened, and he felt the vestiges drawing closer to the front of his mind in interest, watching the teen curiously. The purple-haired boy grit his teeth. Your brain. It literally has several living consciousnesses inside it, he hissed. They practically pushed me out of your mind and slammed the door in my face. Oh, well, Izuku stammered, glancing between Nana and Diagoro, who was still trying to get another reaction out of the other boy. I guess you could say I also have a sentient quirk, he eventually answered sheepishly, still staring at the two ghosts hovering on either side of Shinso. The other boy followed his gaze, frown deepening before he turned back to Izuku. I I kind of got that much, but Shinso paused, looking unsure. How are there so many of them? And are they here now? He asked, shifting in place and glancing around himself. Yeah, they kind of find you interesting since you look like a small eraserhead. He's one of their favorite heroes, Izuku answered with a small smile, causing Shinso's eyes to widen comically. And, there are 7, to be exact. And, I don't know, they just showed up one day out of nowhere? For a long, intense moment, all Shinso did was stare at him, looking like he believed Izuku to have gone insane. But then, Nana grinned and poked him firmly on the shoulder, making Shinso jump in surprise and whirl around. Nana squealed in delight at having gotten a reaction out of the other vestiges. At having gotten a reaction, and the other vestiges laughed loudly inside their head. And all Izuku could do was stare in disbelief. There really was no denying it. Even though Shinso couldn't see him, he could still sense them somehow. Needless to say, the vestiges seemed thrilled over someone new to play with. So are they they are good, right? They aren't gonna start haunting me? Shinso asked, glancing at Izuku worriedly and looking a bit pale. Izuku couldn't help it. He started laughing. Nah, they're cool. I've actually never seen them being able to interact with anyone else before, so I guess they are just a bit excited. I wonder if it was because you used your quirk on us, but just how he noticed he was rambling and he cut himself off. Anyways, they are really nice, I promise, he said with a grin, gaining an uncertain nod from Shinso. Aw, would you listen to that? Our green bean called us nice. Sniff. I'm so happy. Oh, and they never shut up either, so that's fun, Izuku then added with an eye roll, earning him an offended "Hey!" from the vestiges and a small snort from Shinso. Dude, Shinso said, running a hand through his hair and staring at Izuku in disbelief. That must suck. At that, Izuku shrugged. I mean, it's pretty useful too. Like, against mind control, apparently? Izuku joked, causing Shinso to huff in amusement. Izuku smiled at the sound and stepped closer to the other boy, feeling happy when the other didn't back away. By the way, would it be alright if I asked you about your quirk? I think it's really cool and he started to ramble, his smile only growing when Shinso actually answered. Inside his mind, the vestiges groaned, and he has the audacity to say that we never shut up. Kid, what the hell are you doing? Izuku flinched when he broke yet another finger, determined to break through to Todoroki. This would have been a lot easier if I was allowed to bring my grenades. But no, Izuku thought, gritted teeth, sending a glare to where he knew Nezu sat among the crowd. In the end, he lost the fight and broke several bones, and the vestiges and his dads were not happy with him. According to Recovery Curl, he had been really close to needing surgery had he gone any further. But luckily, he had just barely managed to avoid that outcome, and Recovery Girl's quirk was enough to heal him, leaving him with a few gruesome scars. But at least he gained another friend? That's three in one day! Normal people go to the movies or to a cafe to get friends, not breaking their goddamn bones over a stupid competition! I thought we had already established that I'm not normal? Izuku muttered, quietly, tuning out the sound of Recovery Girl scolding All Might for Izuku's injuries. Now, he sent out a silent apology to his mentor, though he didn't regret what he did, not when it had helped Todoroki. Broccoli's point of view. After changing into his cat form that evening, Broccoli had noticed his right front paw was a little crooked, and he had a slight, barely noticeable limp. But so far, neither of his dads seemed to have noticed it, and Broccoli hoped it would remain that way. He was currently lounging on the armchair in the living room, Slushy curled up next to him and Shota seated on the couch, looking over some paperworks. It was quite funny seeing the stubborn man trying to turn the pages with his heavily bandaged arms, only to finally give up with a frustrated growl and calling over Toshi for help. What a day, huh? Toshi said, sliding in to sit next to Shota on the couch and turning another page. Shota just sighed in response. Tell me about it. He paused, looking down at the page of papers in front of him. I'm thinking of applying for a transfer request for one of the students, he continued, making both Toshi and Broccoli tense before they realized how pleased Shota sounded. Oh, okay, so no one is transferring out of Class 1A. But wait, that means. Broccoli's eyes widened and he sat up, watching his dads intently. Someone will join the hero course? Toshi asked, a surprised and yet happy look on his face. Yes, this one, Shota said simply, handing Toshi a student form of someone. Broccoli tried to see, but he was too small. So, being curious, he jumped over to the couch and up on the back of it, walking closer so he could see who it was. And as soon as he did, he let out a happy purr, because there he could see none other than Shinso Hitoshi. Shinso is gonna join 1A, he thought happily, purring even louder. Kiddo! Nana all but screeched, making Broccoli jolt back to the moment, and he had just enough time to notice he had started to float right behind his dad's. Acting quickly, Broccoli extended his claws and held onto the couch for dear life, and he did it just in time before Shota and Toshi turned to look at him. Broccoli did his best to look casual, and he dragged himself down into a lying down position, so his extended claws wouldn't be visible under all his fur. What do you say, Broccoli? You think he would fit in heroics? Toshi asked, playfully. Next to him, Shota rolled his eyes. Broccoli couldn't help puffing and giving a nod, making Shota laugh out in surprise. Oh, yeah? And how would you know? Shoda asked, almost challengingly. Broccoli just gestured with his head towards the TV and meowed. Shoda shook his head and chuckled. Of course he would watch the broadcast, he grumbled, though he looked highly amused. It had become easier for Broccoli to express himself around them lately, something he never would have dared to do a year ago. But what can he say? Hanging out with them as a Zuku made Broccoli want to hang out with them too. Anyway, I will ask Nezu about the transfer tomorrow. Hopefully he will approve of it, and Shinso can join the class as early as next week, Shota said, sounding pleased. You seem very excited for this student, Toshi pointed out, leaning back into the couch with a small smile on his face. Shota huffed. I just feel like the kid has a lot of potential. Shinso has a mental quirk that is highly useful in heroics, and I am simply looking forward to giving him the chance he deserves to grow. He then paused, his voice growing more quiet. Honestly, he should have gotten into heroics if the damn test wasn't so highly based towards powerful quirks. Biased towards powerful quirks. At that, Toshi's smile turned softer. You see yourself in the kid, huh? Is it a new favorite student I sense? He asked teasingly. Broccoli's ears fell back and he scowled, not liking the idea of some new kid taking his dad's attention. He distantly felt gravity return, but he didn't withdraw his claws just yet, wanting to be sure that Float wouldn't come back. I don't have any favorites, Shota scoffed. Sure you don't, Tushy chuckled, bumping his shoulder against his partner. Anyway, we should probably head back to bed now. It's a big day tomorrow, with you getting the bandages removed and all. At that, Broccoli perked up, something Shota noticed and caused him to groan. Did you have to say that out loud? How the hell will we manage to leave without this troublemaker following us now? Tashi turned around and also saw Broccoli looking at them, but instead of looking annoyed, he just chuckled. Whoops, my bad. Forget I said that, little one. No hospital trip tomorrow, alright? Broccoli just shook his head, feeling his tail sway violently behind him. No way am I letting you leave without me. Author's notes. Izuku leveled up and unlocked friendship with Tokuyami, Shinso, and Todoroki. I love my tired boy Shinso so much. Really excited now that he's finally here. I'm also very excited for more Tokuyami, since I feel like he would be able to relate to Izuku in this story. Just a heads up, there won't be any romantic ships in this story, since I'm a multi-shipper who can't commit to just one ship. And no, there won't be any poly in this story either, simply because I want to leave the romantic options open for the readers. But there will be lots and lots of friendships. About Float. I like to imagine that Nana's quirk Float works kind of like Steven's floating power in Steven Universe. Don't know if that's the case in canon, but it is now the case in this story, lol. Be prepared for future quirk accidents. Next up, we're making another quick visit to the hospital. Then it will be time for our kids to choose their hero names. What do you think our little broccoli will choose? We're also nearing the hero killer arc. Hope you're as excited for Gran Torino as I am. Thank you for reading. Hope you will all have a wonderful day or night wherever you are in the world. And that's a wrap on chapter 20 of the one they call Broccoli. I'm so sorry if like the audio's messed up a bit. I think my mic sensitivity is being bad again. So I hope that the audio is good. I'm too tired to re-record this. I've had a very long last 3 days. I did a lot of things. I went to the beach twice. I did a really long 2.5 mile walk. And then I went to an amusement park all day today. And it's like 11:42 and I'm tired. I'm so tired. But I wanted to record this for you guys. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this. Please leave a comment. They make me so happy to read your comments. And please go show the author Texiliaz some love. The link to the fic is in the description. So that's where you go to do that. And I hope you all enjoyed this. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye. pups.